In this lesson, we're going to learn how to create this effect in After Effects using paths. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and make a new composition. We'll call this Replicate. 1920 by 1080 at 30 frames a second. Duration 100 is fine. Hit OK. You can see that it makes it in the background, just makes a black background. Let's go to Layer New, Solid. You can call this Background. 1920 by 1080, you can also say make comp size and go ahead and leave the color to be black. Once you've created this, go to Layer, Layer Styles, Gradient Overlay. By default, it's black and white. Go to Edit Gradient, click on your white, and we'll just make this kind of like a dark red. Click on the black, and I'm going to go to purple and make it kind of a very, very dark purple. And hit OK. Now you can do this with the shape tool as well, but I'm going to go ahead and create a new path. I'm going to deselect my background. And I'm going to change the stroke color to be white. Go ahead and set this to 20. Doesn't matter which corner you start at. Let's just go ahead and make a rectangle. If you hold down Shift while you're clicking, it will create straight lines based on the position of the last point. If you overshoot, and when you reconnect, you've got this angle, you can always go and select one of the key points and you can move it back in. Okay, once you've created that object, let's rename this rectangle and go to Layer, Transform, Center Anchor Point. In Layer Content, Layer, Transform, Center in View. So now that is in the center of my object, or center of my view. Once you've created this rectangle, let's open it up and go to Contents. You see that there's a shape layer here. You can go to Add, Round Corners, open up Round Corners Rollout, and all it has is the radius. You can see the greater the radius, the rounder, the softer the corners. Once we've created this, let's go to Add. We'll add a Trim Paths and open that up. By default, the start and end are at 0 and 100 respectively. You can see that if I change my end, it's going to change the visibility of the object starting at the end point. If I don't like where this path is starting, I can change the offset value. I'm going to move the offset value to be +70. And it's going to start in the top middle of my object. Okay. Let's change the end value to 0 and set a key at frame 0. At frame 40, we'll go ahead and set the end value to be 100. So now the object draws. You can also edit how fast that happens. You can go into your graph editor. You can set a flat key on the second half, and you can it'll draw fast at the beginning now and draw slow at the end. Let's close up our graph editor, bracket our preview, and see what that looks like. All right. At frame 40, when my object hits, I'm going to give it about five frames to breathe. And then I'm going to add in another animator. Go to Add and add Repeater. By default, the repeater moves the object in the X or the horizontal value. We can change that here under this Transform Repeater 1. Let's open that up. And you can see the position here is 100 and 0. Let's set both of those to 0, and you can see that it collapses all of the copies on top of the object. Let's change the number of copies to 6, and let's change the scale to be 140. So we can see what that does. You can also change the offset. The offset is going to change based on that scale that we're applying to it. You can also change the anchor point, and the anchor point is going to be how the boxes are centered. The last thing we want to do is we want to change the end opacity to be 0, which is going to fade the objects out as they're duplicated. Okay, so let's go to frame 45. Let's change the offset value to be 0. And let's change the scale to be 100. What this will do is it'll collapse all of those copies down on top of the box that we've got. Let's go ahead and key that and key the offsets. Okay, we'll also change the number of copies to 1. If you change it to 0, it will hide this because it considers the first object a copy. Okay, we're going to add 15 frames. So at frame 60, let's just say 10 frames. Go at frame 55. We're going to change the number of copies to 6. We're going to change the offset to -3. We're going to change the scale to be 150. Okay, and let's go ahead and scrub through and see what happens there. You can see that it now draws the object into the distance. Let's go now to frame 75. We'll change the scale to be 160. We'll go ahead and key that. You can see what that does is it gives that a little bit of a living hold or a little bit of elasticity to it. And then at frame 85, we're going to change this to scale of 100. And we'll change the offset to 0. Let's make sure that we key that offset here at 75 to -3. So now we see that elasticity, and then it's going to zoom back in. So our object explodes out, and then it zooms back in. Let's go ahead and preview and see what that looks like. Okay, that's looking good. Last thing we want to do is we want to add some text on there, and we'll animate the text according to the explosion of our object. Let's click on text, go down here, and we'll say replicate. Let's change this to be a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to go to replicate, and I'm going to make that a 3D layer. I'm also going to go to layer, transform, center anchor point. As my object gets larger and pushes away, I'm going to push this replicate text toward the camera. So let's open this up, go to transform. We're going to key the position. If you select all and hit U, you'll see just the animated values. At frame 55 here, I'm going to change the position of my replicate to be -800. Pardon me, I have everything selected. Just select replicate -800. And then go to frame 75. I'm going to change this to be -1000. And then frame 85, I'm just going to snap that object back and hit 0. Let's preview what that looks like. And I can have this be a little bit quicker. Let's go ahead and have replicate push off here. All right, last but not least, let's go ahead and add a little bit of motion blur just to smooth out the scene. You can see my shutter angle is set very high. So if I go to my composition and change the shutter angle to be 200, it's going to make that motion blur a little bit harder, not as soft. And that is the completion of our assignment.